warm welcome along to this special Champions League edition of The Assist. I'm Warren Ashurst and I'm joined by James Milton and Liam Flin to talk us through this latest round of Champions League action. We'll preview the matches shortly, but let's have a look at the fascinating battle for the top eight at the moment, with a number of big clubs struggling to qualify directly for the last 16. The likes of Real Madrid and PSG spring to mind. Milts, we'll start with you. Is there a potential upset on the cards here? Is there one big team in particular that you think may well miss out?
I mean, you mentioned PSG who are out of it, and Real Madrid who are sort of 16-1 to make the top eight, which is only slightly shorter than Celtic, which amazing to think of that 5 games in. If you'd laid Man City and Real Madrid for top eight at the start of the tournament, you're probably looking forward to a good Christmas. City are probably not in a rush to back them at kind of around 3-1. You'd say they maybe need to win their last three. Their next two are away at Juventus and PSG. So, there are pitfalls there. And it has been fascinating. I think you're probably looking at still the minimum target of 15 points. I think you really want to be getting 16 to make sure, because it has been so open. There have been so many surprise results. I was looking, maybe the teams at the top, maybe Leverkusen look a little short at kind of 5 to 6 to finish top eight. They've got 10 points from 5 games. Their next two are at home to Inter and away to Atletico Madrid. And you think they could easily drop points in both of those, and then you're the destiny's out of their own hands. And the others are interested in actually were Milan at a shade of odds against to finish in the top eight. I certainly don't have them down as serious trophy contenders. They lost their first 2 games. They've won their next 3, beat Real Madrid, of course, at the Bernabeu. And looking at their remaining fixtures, they've got a great chance of taking sort of 7 or even 9 points. Home to Red Star Belgrade and Girona, and then away to Dynamo Zagreb. And I'm not mad about them at all, but I think they've got a real opportunity to finish strongly and finish in the top 8.
And Liam, looking at the top 8 as it is at the moment, Milts has already mentioned Bayer Leverkusen, who we thought would probably be there or thereabouts after winning the German title and going so close to the Europa League last year. But you would probably pick out Monaco as a surprise package of that top 8. And you look at the middle group at the moment, and the likes of Bayern, Atletico, Milan, as mentioned by Milts as well, and also Manchester City. I mean, there's a lot to be played for still.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of this new format. The fact that it's going to hopefully go down to the wire in terms of teams having something to compete for right until the very end, whether it be trying to get into those top 24, trying to get into the top 8, or trying to get a seeded position. In terms of kind of where the value's at the moment, I mean, I like the look of Atletico Madrid to squeeze into that top 8. It's around 2-1, I think. I mean, their 4-3 comeback win over Sevilla on Sunday made it 9 straight wins in all competitions. They've really hit a rich vein of form recently. And you look at their next 2 games in the Champions League, they've got 2 successive home games coming up, the first of which is against Slovan Bratislava. Then it's against Bayer Leverkusen, actually only 1 point outside of that top 8 heading into the next match day. And of course, we know they've got a lot of know-how in this competition with Diego Simeone and his experience there. So, yeah, I think Atletico Madrid is definitely a bit of value. I kind of echo what Milt said, obviously, about Paris Saint-Germain. Definitely worried about them even kind of making it into those playoff positions the way they've been going. I've got visits to Salzburg and Stuttgart, either side of a home contest with Manchester City. Won just 2 of their last 6 games, and against Auxerre in the league last time out, they fielded a pretty strong team and still couldn't get a win. So I do worry about them a little bit. I think they're obviously still in a transitional phase following obviously the departure of Kylian Mbappe in the summer.
Okay, well, time now to look ahead to the action in midweek, and we'll start off with Liverpool's latest Champions League test as they're in Spain to take on Girona in an early kickoff. Tuesday, 5:45 is the time to make a note of. Girona against Liverpool. Girona 6-1 to claim the victory. Liverpool 21-50 and the draw 15-4. Milts, we'll start with you with this one. A fresh Liverpool team going into this. No game against Everton at the weekend. Probably did them a bit of a favour preparing for this game.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they had those two high-octane league games, the win against Manchester City and then that dramatic 3-3 at Newcastle. So then to have then gone into a derby trip to Goodison, the final game at Goodison between these two rivals, that would have been another big test for them. So I think, you'd be far more inclined to back Liverpool after that free weekend. And I just think they look a nice price to win to nil actually in this one. They've obviously won 5 out of 5, so they don't need to be pushing for it. But Girona are probably the weakest team they've played in the Champions League this season. That side who finished third in La Liga have been picked apart, really struggling this season. They've lost to nil in 3 of their first 5 Champions League games. That includes a 1-0 defeat to Sturm Graz, where they had only 1 shot on target. And Liverpool absolutely flying domestically and in Europe. So I think they can claim a regulation victory in Spain.
Yeah, it's looking, Liam, as though Liverpool will probably make some changes for this game to freshen things up. But they still expect to beat a side that have only got 3 points from their opening 5 games in the competition.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'd think along very similar lines to Milt's there. I'd be going for a Liverpool to win, Liverpool win and under 3.5 goals. I mean, Girona are obviously naturally a shadow of the team that they were last season. They lost a lot of key players in the summer and in attacking areas specifically. Artem Dovbyk obviously departed. Alex Garcia, Savinho's loan came to an end before he went to Manchester City. So they haven't really, in my opinion, replaced those players in those key areas. On their Champions League debut, 4 defeats in 5 games, only 4 goals scored in the process. And as we said, they've drawn a lot of blanks recently against Sturm Graz, Real Madrid, and a 4th-tier Logroñez side in the Copa del Rey as well. So I'd be looking at them to lose a low-scoring game with Liverpool, who, as we know, have just been exceptional in this competition with 5 wins from 5 and only 1 goal conceded. And obviously that rest with the Merseyside derby having been postponed will also do them the world of good.
Well, there's another British team in action at 5:45 on Tuesday as Celtic are at Dynamo Zagreb. Brendan Rodgers' side 5-4 to collect the victory. Zagreb are 21-10 and the draw 5-2. Liam, we'll start with you with this one. I suppose Celtic, if you'd have offered it at the start of the Champions League that they'd have finished in that middle third of the table, they probably would have accepted it. But they've got a real opportunity here now to maybe make some progress in the Champions League.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with them, and I think they're definitely a little bit reliant on results on home soil. But no, they've been going about it really well. In terms of this game, I think there'll be goals. I think these are 2 top-heavy sides, but it's actually a player bet I like the look of, and I'm going to go for Martin Bacharina to make an assist at 4-1. I mean, Dinamo Zagreb, they're on 7 points as it stands, but they've got Arsenal and Milan to come after this, so I definitely see them attacking this game. And Bacharina, I mean, he's a 21-year-old attacking midfielder, been strongly linked with a move to Manchester United, among other big clubs. And he's a real key creative outlet for them. He's actually second in the Croatian top flight for assists this season with 5. Actually been deployed in a striker's role quite a lot recently, so he's always up there and able to kind of lay on that final pass. So I think he's massively overpriced, in my opinion, to make an assist in this game against Celtic.
Milton, what have you made of Celtic so far? Have they done better than you thought?
I think they've obviously been given a great opportunity by the draw, and I think that they had the easiest draw on paper at the start. But they've taken 4 points from 2 of their toughest games, away to Atalanta and then at home to Leipzig. So they've certainly earned the right to be in the mix here, and yeah, I think it's as Liam mentioned, Dinamo will be going for it. I think Celtic will be going for it as well. They've now got fixtures away to Dinamo and at home to Young Boys before they travel to Villa on match day 8. So I think Brendan Rodgers will want to at least nail down that playoff place before going to Villa Park. And so I'm going to keep it simple with this one. Go for over 2.5 goals. I think both teams will be positive. Both teams have scored in 4 of Celtic's 5 Champions League games. Obviously they had the 7-1 defeat at Dortmund, but they've also had 5-1 and 3-1 victories. Dinamo started out with that 9-2 defeat against Bayern Munich. I'm not expecting Celtic to win in quite that style, but they can certainly cause problems for their hosts. And yeah, it should be an entertaining game.
Let's turn our attentions now to the Red Bull Arena on 8 o'clock on Tuesday. It is Aston Villa who are the visitors to take on RB Leipzig. Villa are 8-5 to collect the victory. Leipzig 8-5 also to claim success, and the draw is 5-2. Milton, we'll start with you with this one. Hard to know where Villa are at the moment. It's kind of in and out in terms of performances, but kind of feel, in my opinion, that Unai Emery may be better suited to the Champions League than a Premier League title tilt this season.
Well, certainly when it comes to setting up his defence, I mean, the stats underline that. They just keep so few clean sheets in the Premier League. And yet the only goal they've conceded in 5 Champions League games was the infamous Tyrone Mings handball penalty against Club Brugge. So, they've not really done much wrong here. Won their first 3 games. But as we mentioned earlier, the league phase is so kind of up and down that they're now out to 2-1 to finish in the top 8. After a couple of slip ups against Club Brugge and then the 0-0 with Juventus, and Leipzig, usually kind of dangerous outsiders in this competition. Had a horrific campaign, lost all 5 of their games. 4 of those losses were by a 1-goal margin. I think this one is going to be tight. Leipzig have just picked up with a couple of domestic wins to 0 in their last 2 games. Question marks over both sides. So I like the look of the draw at around 5-2. I think that's a big price in this one.
As Milton has alluded to there, Liam, it's a bit of a surprise to see RB Leipzig where they are. I actually watched the game against Liverpool at the Red Bull Arena, and I thought they actually were quite impressive. They only lost by 1 goal in the end, but to see them without a point at the moment, I mean, this is a tough ask against a Villa side, as we've already said, really well organised by Unai Emery.
Yeah, the mood around Leipzig isn't very good at the moment, and I would be kind of leaning more towards Villa, and I'd be looking at Villa draw no bet. So obviously that means you're back in Villa, but in the event of a draw, you get your stakes returned. It's been back-to-back wins for Aston Villa, and that should really boost their confidence coming into this competition. They've also picked up some big results in the Champions League this season, as we said, beating young boys, Bayern Munich and Bologna, and of course drew with Juventus. Their only defeat coming against Club Brugge, as Milt said, because of that bizarre blunder from Tyrone Mings. Leipzig, they have stabilised recently with that cup win over Eintracht Frankfurt and then the win over Holstein Kiel, but they'd lost 5 of their 6 games in all competitions beforehand. And it doesn't take much for them to fall apart. I mean, they were ripped apart by Wolfsburg 5-1 at the end of November. I mean, Wolfsburg are a team on the up, but by no means one of the strongest clubs in the Bundesliga. So I do fear for them. Obviously, we said they've lost all 5 of their games in this competition and been conceding an average of 2 goals per game. So I think Villa should get over the line in this one, and I'd be backing them draw no bet.
Well, let's turn our attentions now to Wednesday's action, and we'll start off with Arsenal, who play host to the surprise package at Monaco on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. The Gunners are 3-10 to claim the victory. It's 9-1 Monaco and 9-2 the draw. Liam, we'll start with you with this. And Arsenal seem like they're back to their best of what we've seen in sort of recent weeks. I know it was probably a little bit frustrating not to pick up the 3 points at Fulham on Sunday, but certainly performances are on the up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were heartbroken in that game against Fulham, denied victory by the finest of margins following that late VAR call on Saka's goal. But nonetheless, I think Arteta can be pleased with what he's seen from the Gunners recently. And I think they will edge this. And I'd specifically go for Arsenal to win this by 1 goal in the winning margin market. I think obviously Monaco doing very well, but I mean, Arsenal obviously on course to make the top 8 as it stands. They conceded just twice in their 5 Champions League games this season. I don't think they've suffered too much the recent absence of Gabriel at the back. And you look at Monaco, I mean, 3 of their 5 games in this competition have also been settled by just a single goal. So both teams have liked to keep it pretty tight in this competition. So I think Arsenal would just edge it at the Emirates by a single goal.
Yeah, these 2 teams, Milt, 7th and 8th in the Champions League standings at the moment. But you would suggest with home advantage maybe that Arsenal should go and claim a victory here?
I think so. I mean, if you're looking at the form line, that Arsenal beat PSG 2-0 pretty comfortably on Matchday 2, and obviously PSG, despite their problems in Europe, still look a cut above the rest in France. So I think the 2-0 correct score appeals as well. Arsenal have kept 6 clean sheets in their last 7 Champions League matches at home. And Monaco, as you said, has made a strong start to the season. Remember that when they beat Barcelona, they were playing against 10 men for about 80 minutes. So they had a bit of fortune there. Won 1-0 at Bologna last time out. Needed a late goal from a corner there. Obviously, as an Arsenal fan, I'm not going to belittle scoring from corners, but I think Arsenal are capable of standing firm in this one. Monaco have lost 4 of their last 8 in all competitions, and their last 2 defeats against Benfica and Marseille, they let slip leads. So, suggestions they might be running out of steam a little after a terrific start. Yeah, 2-0 Arsenal for me.
I envisage one of those ball machines firing balls into the penalty area for Monaco in training this week, just to try and negate the threat of set pieces from Arsenal. Manchester City are back in Champions League action on Wednesday as well. They make the journey to Turin to take on Juventus. Juve are 3-1 to win the game, with City 10-11 and the draw 5-2. I looked at that then. I just hesitated slightly, Mills, because I thought 3-1 is a big price for Juve at home against a City team who, they bounced back against Forest, but then we saw the other side of them again in that draw with Palace.
It is, yeah. It's a really interesting one, this, because Juve, like City, have gone off the boil recently. Real kind of draw specialists. 7 of their last 9 games in all competitions have finished all square. But looking at the context of this game, a draw isn't really going to help either side if they want to keep alive their chances of getting into the top 8. So I just think that may suit City. If it does open up. They're obviously still an inconsistent proposition for punters, but beat Forest, as you said, then drop points at Palace. That ridiculous game against Feyenoord in their last Champions League match when they're 3-0 up and then somehow let that slip. So I'm edging towards City, but certainly keep your stakes modest in this one. What I would say is, Juve started the season in formidable form defensively. They've definitely let their standards slip without Bremer and without the left back Cabal, both of whom are injured, and so I think that's another boost for City backers. I think they can get the job done, but this isn't certainly not my most confident tip of the week.
I mean, Liam, you look at how Juve defended against Villa, and it shows you that they are still capable of keeping the big teams at arm's length. But going forward at the moment seems to be an issue.
Yeah, they do lack in that area, and I would be kind of thinking he's along the same lines as Mills. I think City win would be my way to go, but it wouldn't be my most confident selection on the show. I mean, obviously they've not been up to scratch. The absence of Rodri is being painfully evident, and they've also got key players just not performing. Haaland, Foden, Guardiola, maybe not just quite up to the standards that they've previously been. They obviously at least showed some fight in that 2-2 draw with Crystal Palace, and I think whether or not you think they can still be considered as title contenders in the Premier League, they will likely place more emphasis on the Champions League going forwards, and they need results. Simple as that. I mean, they're 17th spot heading into the next match day. Obviously, as we said, the final draw was unforgivable, the way that they capitulated in that game. But I can't see them making the same mistake in this game. I think the main reason I'm backing them is more of an anti-Juventus approach rather than a pro-Manchester City one. Juve, I mean, they've won just one of their last 6 games. They've not won a Champions League fixture since Matchday 2. Just don't convince me enough going forwards. And I think if City nick a goal early on, then I can see them going on to win the game.
Okay, well, that is how things look for the British teams this week in the Champions League. Up next, it's the Match in Focus.
Do you want football free bets? All the best offers from your favourite bookmakers can be found in one place. Check out racingpost.com/free-bets to find out more. Racing Post, stay ahead of the field.
So we've had a raft of fixtures this week, which you could have picked as the Match in Focus. You look at the likes of Borussia Dortmund against Barcelona, Bayer Leverkusen taking on Inter Milan. But our selection is in the clash between Atalanta and Real Madrid, which takes place on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Atalanta, of course, the Europa League champions, and certainly threatening to finish in the top 8 in the competition. They're 17-10 to claim the victory. It's 29-20 Real Madrid, and the draw is 13-5. Milts, what we've seen of Real Madrid so far this season, I mean, sense that there's a little bit of pressure on Carlo Ancelotti at the moment to try and deliver the goods again this season with a team which is trying to fit in Galacticos again, and it's almost square pegs and round holes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's Carlo Ancelotti's seen most things during his long career, but this is a challenge because, as you say, they're integrating Mbappe, and so that's kind of unsettled the attacking unit. They've got Vinicius Junior and Rodrigo back from injury for this week's trip, which almost kind of complicates Ancelotti's selection. Jude Bellingham scored in 5 of his last 6 games, but presumably he'll be shifted back into a deeper role if either of the Brazilians are fit enough to start. So they've got issues there, but I think the main problem for them is this defensive injury crisis. So many of their most experienced defenders are out. Carvajal, who was so influential last season, and I think that's the major concern. But Real Madrid are synonymous with Champions League success. They've lost 3 of their last 4 matches in the Champions League, and the other one was the win over Dortmund when they were 2-0 down after an hour and had to come back to win 5-2. So there's definitely that kind of aura surrounding them in this competition has definitely been dented this season.
Meanwhile, Atalanta absolutely flying, Liam, at the moment. It probably shouldn't be as much of a surprise these days as, say, won the Europa League along the process of doing that last season. They beat the likes of Liverpool, of course, to get to the final as well. And they come off the back of victories at Roma and at home to AC Milan. They'll be sniffing another scalp here, won't they?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they've just been flying under Gianpiero Gasperini. I mean, we know what he can do with them now, and they've been there a very long time. I think, their playing style has always involved kind of operating with that attacking freedom, which the players just, they thrive as a result of that, and it really is a joy to watch. I think what he's done really well is there's players who maybe had difficult spells at other clubs who've really come to their own. At Atalanta, I think of the likes of Ademola Lookman, Charles de Ketelaere, Mario Pasalic among them. And I think a big plus for them this season has been the addition of Matteo Retegui, the striker who's just been a revelation since arriving from Genoa. He's got 14 goals in all competitions. His move, incidentally, came about after an ACL injury sustained by Gianluca Scamacca. So it was quite a smart move in the market, I think, from Atalanta. But yeah, everything just seems to be clicking into place, and I definitely think they could fluster Real Madrid in this one.
Yeah, a couple of former Premier League players in their ranks, as you mentioned there, Ademola Lookman. They've also got Ben Godfrey currently from Everton as well. So they find these players, Milts, to kind of replace others. I mean, they lost Coop Myers in the close season, and maybe teams would have thought, oh, is there a slight chink in the armour there for Atalanta? But they've got this brilliant habit of, a little bit like Brighton, I would suggest, selling players off and then finding almost as good a player to replace them.
Absolutely. I mean, it feels like such a simple thing, doesn't it? Just find good young players and then sell them on for a fortune. But it's such an art, and Atalanta have been outstanding at it for a good few years. Gasperini's been there since 2016, so he's had a couple of generations of teams who've done really well. And we've mentioned the players. You look at Edison, the midfielder as well, is brought in from Salernitana, is now being linked with plenty of top clubs, Manchester City among them, I think. I think they've been superb under Gasperini. They've got so many goal threats, and one who I like the look of this week, actually, who's I think may still be underrated, is Mario Pasalic. Keep an eye on the team news here, because if he starts behind the front 2, I think he'll be a really decent anytime goal scorer bet. He's scored in 2 of his last 5 in Serie A. He had 4 shots against Milan last weekend when Atalanta they won 2-1, but they were worthy winners there. And his only home start in the Champions League came against Celtic, and he had 6 attempts at goal, hit the crossbar with a header. So I think he could be one of those who can certainly ruffle Real's depleted defence.
Liam, what's your best bet then for this one?
Yeah, I'd be going Atalanta draw no bet. I think when you're in the midst of a defensive crisis and not in particularly great form. Atalanta are probably one of the last teams you want to face right now. Obviously, last season they took down an unbeaten Bayer Leverkusen side in that Europa League final. 3 wins in their last 4 Champions League games. Of course, crushed Young Boys 6-1 last time out. And as we mentioned, domestically, back-to-back wins over Roma and Milan. So they're also taking the initiative in the race for the Scudetto. They've now won 9 games on the spin in all competitions. Real Madrid on the road recently been a little bit up and down, obviously slipped to defeats away to Liverpool and then away to Athletic Bilbao in a midweek La Liga fixture. So I'd be opposing them in Italy. I think Atalanta have got too much about them for a depleted Real Madrid team at the moment.
Are you along the similar thoughts here, Milt, or do you think Real Madrid might salvage themselves with a big result?
I mean, you're always wary of writing them off, particularly when you look at the attacking talent they've got. But yeah, as Liam said, in terms of the team that's playing like a unit, that knows their roles and is playing with huge confidence, both in Serie A and the Champions League. Yeah, I think it's a really awkward test for Real, who, as we mentioned earlier, have not got much margin for error if they're going to make the top 8, which is looking increasingly unlikely.
It is at the moment. Big pressure then mounting on Real Madrid. Just to remind you, it's an 8 o'clock kickoff between Atalanta and the defending champions on Tuesday evening. We're going to turn our attentions now to the best bets for this week, and we will start with the assist treble. And Liam, we'll start with your selection. Where are you looking here?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Benfica to beat Bologna. I mean, Benfica are obviously one of the teams looking to take advantage of Ruben Amorim's departure from Sporting Lisbon in the Primeira Liga, but they've also picked up some big results in the Champions League this season. Of course, beat Atletico 4-0 on Matchday 2. They're also 2-1 winners away to Red Star Belgrade in their opener. Bologna, they've just really looked out of their depth in the Champions League, 4 defeats from 5 games. I think they're struggling to juggle their domestic duties with the Champions League, and I think Benfica should be comfortable winners in this game.
Okay, Benfica for Liam. Who's your selection for the assist treble, Milt?
Yeah, I'm going for Lille to beat Sturm Graz. Lille won 3-1 against Brest on Friday in Ligue 1. Stretched their unbeaten run to 14 matches, and that includes Champions League wins over Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid and Bologna. They drew with Juventus. So I think they're going to be too strong at home for Sturm Graz, who beat Girona, who, as we've mentioned, have been really struggling. Beat them 1-0 on Matchday 5, but they'd lost their previous 4 games and scored only 1 goal. So, yeah, I think it could be back to losing ways for Sturm Graz.
Okay, and my selection is going to be an over 3.5 goals pick, and that's in the game between Shakhtar Donetsk and Bayern Munich. It's around about even money. There's been 4 or more goals in Shakhtar's last 5 matches in all competitions. There's also been 4 or more goals in 3 of Bayern's last 5 games on the road as well. And the German Giants currently sat outside of the top 8. Could go down to goal difference that in terms of who finishes in those top 8 positions. And you'd think that they'll see this game, Bayern, as an opportunity to get plenty of goals. Shakhtar have also been, as I say, amongst the goals themselves as well. So I'm going over 3.5 goals in my selection. And you couple that with Benfica from Liam, and Lille is the tip from James Milton as well for the assist treble. Let's conclude then this Champions League special with the naps from both Milts and from Liam. Milts, we'll start with your selection first.
Yeah, I mentioned Brest losing 3-1 at Lille last week. I think it could be a similar story. They're at home to a rampant PSV side. And I'm going for PSV to win and over 2.5 goals in this one. 4 of Brest's last 5 results have been defeats featuring at least 3 goals. And PSV just in fantastic form. Beat Girona 4-0 and had an astonishing 3-2 win against Shakhtar last time out in the Champions League. And they were 2-0 down with about 3 minutes to go. I think that saved our treble, didn't it, Warren?
It did, week? Yeah. It was a successful treble.
Never in doubt. And since then, PSV have won their 2 subsequent Eredivisie games, 5-2 and 6-1. And those were against teams who are 2nd and 5th in the table. So, they are on the charge. And, a high-scoring win for PSV in Brest.
Please don't leave it as late this time, PSV, if you can. Liam, your nap selection for this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go Club Brugge, draw no bet against Sporting Lisbon. I think, Club Brugge, they've more than held their own in this competition. Obviously, they've beaten Sturm Graz, Aston Villa. We know the way they won that Aston Villa game, but nonetheless got 3 points on the board in that one. Held Celtic to a draw as well, and still very much in contention to make the playoff places. I mean, they've won 4 games on the spin domestically. I just think they could have a bit too much in Belgium for Sporting Lisbon, who, quite frankly, have fallen apart since Ruben Amorim departed. Obviously, they were thrashed 5-1 by Arsenal, and then they've gone on to lose back-to-back league games against Santa Clara and Moreirense. Seems to be a bit of a crisis of confidence there at the moment after what was a terrific start to their domestic season under Amorim. So I wouldn't be going near them at the moment, and I think Bruges draw no bet is the way to go.
Yeah, we've seen it before. When a key manager moves on, it has a negative impact, and certainly looks that way for Sporting Lisbon at the moment. So a big thanks to Milt and to Liam as well for all their efforts today. Don't forget, of course, to like, subscribe and comment. And if you like your golf, make sure that you join Steve Palmer for the Sweet Spot every Tuesday. We'll be back on Thursday looking ahead to the Premier League and EFL action. But until then, enjoy your European football and please remember to gamble responsibly.